Child labor provides a striking image, and to many it is a stereotype, of a natural top predator in a competitive global economy. These people see profit being maximized by the purity of the depravity, with a necessity to pay next to no wage, long hours, and expend the most immature human capital, rather than labor being made more efficient and productive through labor-saving innovation and fully developed human capital, which produces more of the products which better serve our needs. Thus, we are utterly helpless to compete because we've wasted all our time innovating and leaving Netherlands when the Chinese have 6-year-olds working with their bare hands. So we either have to join them in that, lose everything, or implement a policy, usually a trade policy, restricting our or their trade, or both. If we look at this sweatshop child labor, it heavily coincides with poor implements, long hours, and of course the child workers themselves. These are correlated, and the long hours, little pay, and child labor are a compensation for underdevelopment that is not morally or economically desirable. When possible, the kids are moved into a school. The popular association of child labor with industrial sweatshops itself ignores that most child labor is not even industrial, but agricultural and the like. And most of those kids in agricultural child labor, they're working for their family. This sort of ties into the narrative about the Gilded Age that wrongfully blames development from agrarian feudalism into industrial capitalism for the various things that it actually reduced, especially the brutal parts. But people who are truly gone see the primitiveness of child labor and feel vindicated that this primitive and depravity is the peak. So let's look at the country who this allegation of child labor is directed at the most, and whose rise in manufacturing is discredited most as being unfair because of child labor. And it is a good pick because it relates to that stereotype I mentioned a few seconds ago about development from agrarian economy into an industrial economy. China has rapidly developed out of feudalism and an agrarian economy into one of the world's premier economies with a heavy focus on manufacturing. And according to many, their success is our failure, and they only won this zero-sum game because of cheap child labor. But this is not true, because coinciding with China's growing manufacturing, child labor has been on the retreat for decades. What remains is in the less developed areas, because growth and development are not symmetrical, and they have had a heavy focus on educating their youth, and they have a growing service sector. I especially added that bit about the service sector because I see a growing sentiment, particularly on Twitter, that insists jobs that aren't like intense manual labor are fake, and they're somehow opposed to having a productive industry, or they're like a supplement for not. And if we look within our own country, we can see how strikes have emerged over the last few years. And that is because many companies have had a growth in profits that has much outpaced its growth in wages. Certainly, it shouldn't be possible to pay first world wages and make a profit, let alone a big one, and one that is big enough to have an increase in wages, even beyond what they are right now at first world levels. So, how is this possible? The productivity increase.